Okay, today we're going to start looking at some of the special senses. And today we'll talk about smell, pretty much. The special senses are associated with large, complex structures, and they are located specifically in the head. They include smell, that we'll talk about today, taste, hearing, equilibrium, and sight. And actually, we'll probably talk about taste. We'll probably get through both of those today. So the first one, smell. Smell is called olfaction. Your olfactory receptors and taste receptors are both chemoreceptors, so they work around chemicals. So the odors that you pick up are a chemical. The taste that you taste in your mouth are chemicals. And they have to be dissolved in liquids to be stimulated. Sense of smell and taste work together, which I'm sure you've noticed, like if you have a bad cold and you can't hardly taste food because your nose, you can't smell it. So sense of smell and taste do work together. If we look at the nose, so inside, your olfactory area sits on top, on the upper part of your nose. So you can see that it's found up here. So when your odors come into your nose, they're picked up towards the top part of your nose. And they are lined by single layer of columnar cells. So single layer so that these chemicals are absorbed very easily. Then there's little cilia. Cilia are going to help clean things out. So in your nose, because air is coming in, it's an opening to the outside. The cilia help to keep things clean. And then here is a lining of the olfactory bulb, which is basically a long part with individual nerve cells that come out and pick up smell and sensations. So olfactory organs contain those little receptors plus those columnar cells that support it, and like I said, they're in the upper nose part. The olfactory receptor cells are bipolar neurons, so they have two parts at the end of it. They have the cilia that cover the dendrites on the outside. The cilia project into the mucous membrane, and like I said, they work together with that mucus to keep dirt and dust from entering the inside of your body. To actually be picked up, chemicals that enter your nose or your nasal cavity must first be dissolved in a fluid, just like in your mouth. If you didn't have saliva, you would not taste food nearly as well either. So your nasal cavity has a watery fluid that helps dissolve the chemicals that enter your nose. Any odorant or smelly molecule will stimulate various sets of different receptors. When olfactory receptors are stimulated, their fibers are going to connect with neurons in that olfactory bulb, so that larger part that was on top of the nose, and it lies on the crista galli of the ethmoid bone. So last chapter we talked about the ethmoid bone, just so you know those receptors are found there. Sensory impulses are first analyzed in that bulb, so that's where they're first recognized. They travel along olfactory tracts, go into the limbic system of your nervous system, and then it's going to go into your temporal and frontal bones of your brain. So when your brain picks up the smell, smelling is located fairly close to where your nose is actually at. So kind of frontal, temporal area. Each individual odor stimulates specific proteins. So for example, a sweet smell is going to stimulate a certain protein. A harsher chemical smell is going to stimulate something different. So these individual odors stimulate different proteins, and that will become important. What happens then in your nervous system, ions, your sodium ions, are going to move across a membrane. So sodium ions are going to, it's called depolarize. That are going to go from one side to another, and then that action potential is generated. The brain interprets different receptor combinations. It's called an olfactory code. So like I said, once you have a smell, oh, that smells like pizza. Well, that code is identified in your brain, and the next time, oh, that smells like pizza. It's a certain mixture of chemicals that give that odor. However, olfactory receptors adapt quickly and selectively. So what happens is if I smell something, so like I've talked about when we dissect in here and that dissecting smell. If you come in here and you smell that, the receptors for that smell are going to adapt quickly, and pretty soon you won't even notice that smell. However, if I bring in pizza into the lab, a new and different smell, you're going to smell that because it's different receptors, different proteins that pick up that other odor. And I will stop there for a little bit.